In February every year, there's a special day when we find out who really loves who. And no, it's not Valentine's Day, although I did appreciate my regular card from Kevin Andrews. It's that magical day in February when we find out who's been donating money to our politicians.
But first, following the money in federal politics, the Australian Electoral Commission has released the latest figures on corporate donations to Australian political parties.
Clive Palmer's Queensland Nickel was the largest donor to the businessman's political party.
The embattled MP has denied there was anything wrong with making political donations to his own party.
Carrie Bradshaw is right. Much like Valentine's Day, the popular kids get all the gifts and the uncool kids have to send cards to themselves. The reason that was probably the only story you heard about is simple. Not a lot of people have time to go through this stack of political donations data that was released this month. But we're a comedy show, so we have plenty of time on our hands. And this is what we found. First off, of the $173 million that flowed to our political parties last year, there is no way of publicly knowing where 40% of it came from. 40%. If you had a tin of beans and the list of ingredients said 60% beans, 40% completely unknown substances, you would not let that tin of beans run the country. We have some of the weakest political donation laws in the world. For starters, a lot of the time, the parties don't even have to tell you who's giving them money.
There are federal laws which require registered political parties to disclose the total amount they receive from donors and also to reveal who from if the amount is above $12,800.
Only donations over $12,800 each year need to be reported. In the US, it's $200 over 4 years, which means Australian politicians can accept anonymous donations 256 times larger than the Americans. That is a stat worth celebrating. Yeah. Move over, Big Banana and Big Pineapple. It's time for Canberra's latest attraction, the Big Brown Paper Bag. And as piss weak as that rule is, there are still ways around it.
Donors can now donate up to, I think it's about $111,000 to a political party without any disclosure if they distribute their donations around all the state branches of the party.
Listening closely to Doctor Who's brother, you might be thinking that deliberately splitting transactions into smaller amounts to avoid reporting them sounds a lot like money laundering. That's because it's literally the government's definition of money laundering. And that's literally the correct use of the word literally. The other problem is that while technically politicians are meant to disclose donations every October, many donations are actually declared A, never, or B, just before the shit is about to hit the fan.
Bill Shorten has admitted he didn't declare a $40,000 political donation for 7 years.
Look, Bill, we'd all like to forget the last 7 years of the Labor Party, but we can't, OK? Even when we do know who is giving them the money, it's not always clear who is actually giving them the money, as we found out when we contacted someone who this pile showed us was Australia's largest individual donor.
Australia's largest individual political donor says she has no knowledge of a near $900,000 payment to a major building industry union. The CFMEU declared the funding in its official declaration to the Electoral Commission last year. But the apparent source of the funds, Wendy Kennedy, has told ABC TV's The Weekly she has no knowledge of it.
I honestly thought someone was playing a prank on me. In fact, I thought you were playing a prank on me when you called.
Yes, because we've all done pranks like that. You know, where you send 30 pizzas and 900 grand to the CFMEU. The CFMEU admit that this was their administrative error, but it was still waved through by auditors and still ended up in here. Now, just because a donation is controversial doesn't make it illegal. But what happens when someone has breached donation laws? We asked the Australian Electoral Commission to give us one example of when they'd gathered enough evidence for someone to be charged with breaching donation laws. They couldn't. Not just this year, ever. That's zero, which you'll agree is not a lot. Especially since they were given powers to investigate these things by Prime Minister Billy Hughes in 1918. No one has been charged for donating Australian dollars since before there were Australian dollars. We've only had this data for 2 weeks, and as of today, we've discovered $1.7 million worth of undeclared donations from the pharmaceutical industry, property developers, business interests, and others who all stand to benefit from the decisions of certain politicians. When we asked the AEC about these errors, they asked us to send the work we'd done on their data. And we're going to do that. We're going to do that, along with a Photoshop picture that never made it into tonight's show. It was a good joke. I don't have time to go into it now. In no other public position do we allow people who make decisions to take money from the people that could benefit from those decisions. Judges can't accept cash from defendants. You know, oh, this stack of hundreds is highly unusual, but I'll allow it. But we let it slide in politics because we think we know where all the money is coming from. Only, as we've seen, we don't. So until we fix our donation system, perhaps we should take a leaf out of a plan that's being pushed by voters in California.
When we see race car drivers, there's no mistaking that sponsors make NASCAR's wheels go round. Imagine if our politicians had to do the same.
We filed an initiative that is going to require every one of our legislators to wear stickers noting their top contributors.
That is a great idea. That is a great idea. Because, ironically, right now, only one Australian politician is transparent enough to display giant stickers of his biggest donor. Happy Valentine's Day, Clive.